Thank you very much for this opportunity. It is a great honor to have a chance to talk today. And my name is Asako Okamura from National Institute of Science and Technology Policy, NISTEP, Japan. Okay, I will talk about the public communication activities in Japanese Research Institute. And this is a result of international collaboration survey, which is more PE. Okay, so more P stands for mobilization of resources for public engagement. So this project aims to understand the culture of public engagement at Research Institute. So this project is already completed in 2020. And we also publication paper and book already published. So I think you can follow the links. Okay. And just let me summarize the motivation of more PE. We use the term of public engagement, but actually we are talking about science communication and public communication. And public communication are conducted at several levels. The first level is a policy level, and the second level is a macro or central level of universities, which includes PR offices, media relation department. I think Helen's talk is on this level. And the third level is the meso level, which are research institutions, units, centers. And the fourth level is micro level, which is at the individual scientist level. So with more P project, we specifically targeted at the meso level. What kind of activities research institutions are doing and why they are doing, for whom, and what resources are they mobilizing? That was our question. Why we are targeting at the meso level? Because we thought at the meso level, there should be kind of like some resource mobilizations that we can observe. And we thought we could also observe the disciplinary differences regarding the public communications. And 10 countries participated in the MORPI project. And for Japan, GRIPS, National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, were conducting the Japanese survey, which was my previous affiliation. So I moved to the results of Japan. And in our study, we defined public communication as science communication and engagement with non-academic, both one-way and interactive ways. Before going into the details of our study, I briefly touch on the Japanese context at the policy level as a background. Like any other country, deepening science and society linkage is also very critical in the Japanese science policy context. Some may say economic and social impact of science and technology, and some may say, others say responsible research and innovation, or maybe third mission of universities. But they are, of course, different concepts and perspectives, but I think they are similar in the nature. Also, there were shifts in policy focus from understanding to more active participation. So these are already put in policy documents as a concept. However, we do not know much about how these are really practiced in Japan, and these dimensions are very difficult to measure and have rarely been captured by indicators and measurements. So therefore, we participated in MORPI project, which tried to measure the science and society linkage at research institution level. At least partially. And so we set the two research questions. One is what are the details of public communication in Japanese research institutions, and does this vary across different scientific disciplines? And research question 2 is how is public communication activity at research institution level affected by research settings and policies? Briefly introducing the Japanese data. Our survey period was in 2018, so it was before a pandemic. And we conducted online survey, and the research unit was research institution under university. And as for sampling strategy, we targeted university with more than certain levels of research activity. So we choose a top 66 universities were identified using research funding data, which is a Scicom database. And then we choose the research institutions belonging to these 66 universities. Our sample includes 1,134 research institutions, and with reprise 321 research institutions, and response rate was 28%. And we included national university, local universities, and private universities as well. And we cover whole disciplines from natural sciences and to humanities. Okay, let's start with an international comparison regarding the number of public events, and regarding the traditional new channels and new media interactions. Japan is positioned behind other countries, but of course it's not a race. So, but we can say that the public communication activities at research institution level is generally lower compared to other countries. However, generally speaking, there is a rise in activities over 5 years. Around 40% of engineering and agriculture, and 50% of social sciences, and 60% of natural science and humanities have increased public communication activities over the past 5 years. So it's a good news. And regarding the public events they are conducting, we categorize 11 types of events to 3 types. One is diffusion types, including public lecture, open days, talks, workshops at schools. And another one is institutional type, like exhibitions, science festivals, and science fairs. And the third one is a participatory type, like deliberative and participatory events and student science projects. So not surprisingly, but research institutions were holding diffusion type most frequently, but other types like institutional and participatory type were less frequently conducted. And there tends to be a small to medium variation between disciplines in terms of types of events they hold. And in the social science and humanities, the frequency of public events were generally lower than in other fields. But for the participatory type and the events, including the deliberative participatory events on the student science project, they are infrequently across all disciplines with little variation between disciplines. And as for the motivation for communicating with non-experts, many are responding that the dissemination of their research was the most important, and followed by it was being required by university policy and desiring public support. On the other hand, raising the research profile was the least frequently indicated, followed by involving students in the research, responding to the policies of funding bodies, and attracting funding. So these results may imply that funding bodies have not successfully incorporated the values of public communication into their funding policies. Also, public communication activities are not considered to be associated with something which has impact on their research profiles. And so how much these activities are institutionalized in terms of experiences and staffing and institutional policy action plans and evaluations. So length of years in public communication activities, a majority, 50% of engineering, medicine, humanities, 70% natural science and social science, and 80% of agricultural research institutions started public communication activities more than 10 years ago. And research institutions with more than 10 years experience have higher levels of activities, particularly for diffusion type activities, than those who have started less than 10 years. And regarding the staffing, for the around 50% has access to communication staff inside their research body. It means they don't have the research staff inside the research institutions, but they have the access to the upper body. It usually means university level. And 30% has own communication staff, and 20% has no access to communication staff. And most staff engaged in communication activities were engaged on a part-time basis. 67% of said they had no full-time staff, and 80% said they had staff engaged part-time. And as for the previous work experience of the staff, almost 50% of our researchers. And regarding the relevant training, 44% said they had attended workshop or short-time training, while 85% had not received any formal communication education. And regarding the plans, the policies and action plans, 44% didn't have a public communication policy. And as for the action plans, 40% didn't have, and but around the same had the action plans. And 66% expecting researchers to be involved in communication with public, and 51% had no plan or policy, but they are engaging with public. And I will introduce some of the findings here. So regarding the institutional policies, they have a mixed effects, mixed influences on the activity levels. So research institution with plan or policy had more events in diffusion, institutional or participatory type of events. But from our observation, institutional policy could demotivate or some type of communication, such as research institution with no plan or policy had more SNS activities, especially on blogs, Twitters, Facebook, and YouTube. And research institution with policy had less contact with general public, students, other schools, institutes, and the media. And research institution with action plans rather than policy had more contact with NGOs and the media. So the message is a little bit mixed. But from our guess, because we didn't really ask the content of the policy or action plan, but some of the policy may be just regulating the activities rather than encouraging the policy, encouraging the activities. But we, of course, need to investigate more, but that is our guess or observation. And as for the evaluation, and 23% do not evaluate them at all or rarely. 44% evaluate them their activities occasionally. And in response to whether public communication activities have contributed to enhancing the institution's mission, 32% rated the activity as successful and 60% as neither successful nor unsuccessful. And for the resources, and 54% said it was the right amount, and 42% said more resources should be devoted. And for the constraints, this is not a very surprising result, but research institutions that indicated their researchers did not conduct public communication activities due to constraints such as the lack of financial resources, time, or institutional support, actually conducting fewer activities. But we also found kind of as a sign or signal of frustration or dilemmas. Research institutions that indicated their researchers do not think public communication is a part of their job conducted actually more activities and had more contact with the public and the media. So more they do, I think they more expectation on the researchers. Okay, finally, I just wrap up with a summary of findings. The level of public communication activities in Japan is low compared to other countries, but the activity level is increasing, and this return topic is more common than the participatory type. And regarding the institutionalization of communication activities, if they do longer, they have more activities, and especially for the diffusion type, where the number of the communication staff is very small, and few have specialized training. And only about 30% have policy at institutional level, and 40% have an action plan, and 44% conduct occasional self-evaluations. At 60% report neither success nor failure, and only 32% report success. And 40% responding to national policy, and 44% don't know. So finally, the policy implications, maybe too not sure, but we need to clear constraints, because if they think that there's a constraint, they are actually doing less. So constraints mean the financial resources, time, and institutional support. And also it is very obvious that there was a lack of professionally trained communication personnel. And regarding the policies, they have a mixed effect. So some type of the policy may have a risk of hindering bottom-up activities, but which were not so clearly observed, but there was some sign of it. And so, and the change in researchers' perception is very key. So maybe we need a communication or motivation training. And there was the requires less link between the research profile and the communication activities. So they don't really think that the communication activity is good for their making their research profile better. So we think it's better to change their mind. And also, they're still showing some closeness of research activities to society, because they don't, for the motivations, they don't think it's involving citizens in research is very low, low motivations for they're doing public communications. So, thank you very much. If you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.
Thank you.